Hey, we got booted from YouTube, so I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Let's see if anybody is able to find us again because we had to redo I had to create a new event. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, let me play. Can you hear me, Aaron?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So
I think we have someone from YouTube. We're back on YouTube.
okay. Yeah, we only have a few
back.
people trickling in. I guess the same links keeps going, and
Yeah.
we are live again now. So
We are.
hey guys, sorry about the technical difficulties, but YouTube bounced us for copyright infringement. I guess that clip was too long, so I apologize for that. So Alfred says he got in. We have a guest here, but people, I guess it's the same link though, right? Because you got in with the same link, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I think so. I can check. Yeah,
okay.
Let me check.
You get in, so
Let me check.
bear with us 1 second, guys. We'll get everybody on here. I promise.
Yeah. Yep, we're okay.
So Dave's not in. He must be thinking I'm going to send him a new link, but just send him a message if you could to.
Sure.
Benjamin says your video's lagging slightly, Aaron.
Uh-oh.
I think it might be
Let
a
me
little
see
bit.
if I can fix it. 1 sec.
Yeah.
I can put it on my hotspot.
All right, we'll just begin talking to everybody for a second. All right, guys. Sorry about the delay. When you have a brand, there has to be something that distinguishes it. If your brand is a YouTube channel, there should be a core philosophy. I started this channel, so that philosophy began to take shape there, but it doesn't really mold into form until you have a team, until you have an audience that participates in chat and gives us feedback. Each of us on the team, of course, has different beliefs, but what we have in common on the subjects we cover is what ties it all together. Hopefully, I can give voice to it now in a way they'll approve of. Let me give it a shot. I think what unites us is that we all want justice for victims of horrible crime, but we don't trust the system to always deliver that justice. Sometimes the system is ineffective. Sometimes it's too indifferent, too swamped with other cases, lacking resources, inept. And yes, sometimes it's corrupt, which leads to the other part of what we stand for. We believe we can make a difference. We believe citizens can make a difference in many specific cases. Sometimes it's just by bringing attention to a forgotten case in order to help police find the resources for it. Sometimes it's by exposing corruption. Yesterday, DA Michael Morrissey delivered a rare and unusual message at a press conference regarding something we've been covering, the Karen Reed case. In a moment, I'm going to get a quick reaction from my teammates. My response is this. I actually agree with the general parts of the DA's message. Cases should not be tried on YouTube. We should be very hesitant to make accusations against people who haven't been charged with a crime and where there's no evidence pointing at them. My partners here will tell you that I'm extremely concerned about that, and a lot of information we get never reaches the air. But the DA is essentially saying, trust the system, trust the process. And that's the problem. Whatever the truth ultimately is in this case, there's enough shoddy investigative work and enough shady stuff coming from the DA's office that any citizen should be alarmed. Look at the incredible delays in turning over basic evidence. Look at the various unusual theories proposed by the prosecution about what happened. If they don't have a coherent theory that reconstructs the event, how can they go forward with a charge of second-degree murder? Look at the way the prosecution just accepts mysterious gaps in surveillance video as though that's normal. Look at Prosecutor Lally's unacceptable attempt to portray the health app data as unreliable by showing us that the app had John moving after he was pronounced dead. Any citizen in that county hearing that should have been disturbed. We all know the phone moved when police picked it up in the yard. These are people that decide what cases to prosecute and not prosecute. They have the power to destroy lives of any they have the power to destroy the lives of any citizen within their jurisdiction.
Oh, we're back.
I don't know whether Karen Reed is innocent or guilty, but I know the conduct of the district attorney's office is more than just an embarrassment. It's a danger. All right, let's see who's back. We still don't have Dave.
I sent him a message, so we'll see.
We're up to 72, so we're kind of back. So, Erin, what did you think about yesterday's?
Ooh, are you sure you want to know what I think about that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think that in a normal case that doesn't have such blatant, messy two sides to it, I think that this his general consensus of, leave people involved who have not been accused of anything alone. However, in this case, with the supposed involvement at the FBI, grand jury summons, it's obvious that there's more going on than the normal Joe Schmo would know much about. And I think that it's a stretch for him to say most of what he had to say. A lot of that is provable lies, and that's a problem. But I think that at the heart of his message to leave people alone who are not being charged with a crime, I think that can ring true in a lot of different cases. Maybe not so much this one, but in a lot of different cases, yeah.
It seemed very unusual that he tried to suggest that Proctor wasn't there that day. I don't think that seems credible. I mean, Proctor was in. We know he was in Dighton at 1:30 because that's when he called the tow, right? And we know that the tow is to Canton, and the state police investigation didn't begin until about 5:30 in Canton. You mean to tell me that the lead investigator wasn't there for that?
And which is the truth then? Is that the truth, or are his reports the truth? Which is, because something is not true.
Yeah, people have sent me copies of material that show in the official reports that seem to imply or suggest that or say that he was there, unless there's some things were worded improperly or something. It doesn't make sense to say that he wasn't on the scene.
Yeah, maybe I I walked away from that going, maybe I misheard something he said, because there's no way that he would lie blatantly to the press and to all the excuse me, all the citizens of Norfolk County that way, and really everyone in this state who's paying any attention to this case. Maybe he misspoke and I misheard him or something. I walked away from that going, one of us is either speaking wrong or hearing wrong, because there's no way that he said what I think he just said.
About Proctor or about something else?
Yeah, about Proctor.
I mean, it didn't make sense.
No, it didn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe he meant to say.
Maybe I'll have to see a transcript or something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you wonder if these guys communicate well with each other. Like maybe someone said to him, well, Proctor couldn't have been there at the time when no one was around, so how could he have planted evidence or something like that? But that translated in his mind. But get your shit that he was reading from a statement. He doesn't even have. Yeah. They don't even have the pizzazz to set him up with a teleprompter. He's sitting down reading like this, so it was clearly prepared words. I mean, it was. If I was in that county, I'd be really, really shocked at the way these guys handle themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I watched it via Turtle Boy the first time, so obviously I got, him yelling and swearing and all that over it. And, of course he's going to be pissed, and of course he's passionate about this, but I said, okay, I got to watch it again without his commentary. And I watched it again, and I was thinking, I think that he made this statement based on generalizations that he didn't really feel the need to clarify. Mm-hmm. Saying Proctor wasn't at the scene. You can't just say Proctor wasn't at the scene. Say Proctor wasn't at the scene during the hours of X to X. Yeah. And therefore couldn't have planted evidence. And that statement makes perfect sense. But if you just say he was never at the scene.
Yes. So
That's
the
a
lead,
blanket statement that is provably false.
we're supposed to feel better when he tells us that the lead investigator put in charge by the state police wasn't at the scene.
Right. If he wasn't at the scene, then how was he taking witness statements? How was he examining the scene? How was he reporting what he was reporting in any of that paperwork? How? If he wasn't there, how did he know any of this? It just doesn't make sense. I think he's stated it too generally, meant to place a time frame with that statement, and then maybe didn't, or maybe he was nervous or something and just missed a line, something. I don't know. Because I have a hard time believing that a district attorney would make a kind of statement like this without fact checking everything. So it's just maybe I misheard, maybe he misspoke. I don't know. I want to give him the benefit
he was
of the
reading
doubt.
the words from a
really
sheet of
do,
paper.
but-
He was reading the words. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so another odd thing was, you notice that in all the episodes I've done and all the times I've talked on this channel about this case, I have never, ever once mentioned the name Colin Albert. Never.
No.
And the reason is
We've
for
never
me,
talked about him.
yeah, for me, it's like, all right, I understand why people are suspicious of this kid, but here's an 18, 19-year-old kid, you know.
I'm not willingly to I'm not willing to publicly state.
Yeah, he's not
any
charged.
opinion about
He's not
him.
charged with a crime, and there's no evidence that we're aware of that specifically points to him. I understand why the people have the theories that they do, and we have mentioned on this channel how there may have been John O'Keefe may have dimed on the nephew dealing drugs, is the way we put it.
Yep.
The chief of police rebutted that, but in a weird way. She came out and said that, yes, John did call about drug dealing, but it was not the people that Aidan Kearney has mentioned.
Right.
But, you know, and we haven't said on this channel, we've been very careful, but to a certain degree, it's almost like the door is open now because of this.
Yeah.
And my understanding and again, this could be wrong, but my understanding is the Alberts themselves went in and put pressure on the DA to put this thing out there. So, I mean, we're hearing.
I don't know. I was driving while I was listening to this yesterday, and I was trying to think, like, what could possibly be the motivation behind making this statement that was obviously put together very quickly, too, because, I mean, a lot of this information was not true, or not entirely true, or not specifically true, which was the problem, because he was not specific enough in most of those statements saying Proctor wasn't at the scene. Well, yes, he was, because he was the one taking notes and reporting and writing reports to his supervisors saying, I was at the scene and I saw XYZ.
Right.
But if he had come out and said that Michael Proctor wasn't at the scene between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m., okay, that would make more sense, because that backs up what he was saying. I think Dave is still having trouble.
Oh, okay. I see that now. Let me.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I think it's the same link, but let me copy it, quickly send it to him.
Yeah,
hey guys, we're trying to get our crack investigator on, Dave. He had some really interesting things to say about the new evidence with the BTK and 2 suspects, so we'll get him on in a second. But yeah, that really bothered me. And even just saying that he's now saying that Colin Albert was definitively not there. Well, my understanding is that the 11 people that were inside the house initially told the police that he wasn't there at all. But then at some point it came out, they must have tracked the cell phone data or found some evidence that showed he was there at least close to that time. So they testified in the grand jury that, okay, he was there, but he left. Right. In fact, I read the notes just recently, the charging document. It said he left before. It was strange. They actually, I should go back and open this document. They have, it's a full paragraph that they dedicate in the charging document to saying Colin Albert wasn't there, which is really unusual. It's like, why are you dedicating a whole paragraph to describe someone who's not there? And it was in really descriptive, emphatic language. But they said that Colin was there until his parents got home, but was gone before any of the guests arrived. So all these guests were coming from the same bar. Now it makes sense, and there was a party going on, so it's not like the parents had to get there first to let them in. They were all friends and relatives and stuff like that. But so the parents raced home, and how, literally got there, how, so, and he was leaving so quick. It's just, I mean, listen, it's.
Oh, Kev, I think you kicked yourself out.
Sorry.
Out there he is.
There he is. Okay.
All right, there.
Hey.
In all this confusion, we seem to have lost Alfred, so I'm not sure if he's going to come back. But it's too bad because he had some really good explanations to me on geofencing, and so we'll get him back on another show. It turns out, so maybe you already knew this, Dave, but I thought geofencing, it's when you get, so there's a murder in a house, and the police want to know who is in that house. And so they want to get the data on that. And I thought it was just a matter of getting the cell phone data, but that's a separate thing.
Yes.
Dave, that sounded kind of loud. They're smoking there, just to let you know that mic's going to pick everything up unless it was something else. I'm not sure. But anyways,
some issues as usual with my inside. So
okay. The geofencing is actually about internet data. So you're looking to see if there were internet devices using the internet inside house. So someone on a phone, Google searching. I don't know. That's the way he explained it to me. Does that sound correct to you, Dave?
That's exactly correct. I'm glad that he was able to give you that insight. And I think it's going to be interesting. Geofencing is going to be everything in the Sandra Birchmore case. It's because if that phone moved anytime after Matt Farwell left that apartment, then Sandra Birchmore committed suicide. If that phone didn't move when he left, then we have another discussion. So we need to get a hold of that cell phone to figure out what exactly happened in that house. And it's amazing we haven't gotten it yet. So I'm glad he was able to give you that insight and you understand a little better now. I wish we had him on when I was here. I apologize.
He's still trying to get in. So I'm going to give it a shot and see if he probably does. Figures the first time we're having him on, we had this issue with YouTube shut us down. But let me send him a link again. He's saying he got in, but obviously he's not here. So
maybe he's in the old one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what happened. But you got right back in with the same link. So I think it generates the same link within a certain time period or something. But
I went back to the dashboard and then just
okay. All right. That's
StreamYard, and I must have done it at the right time because then the new link that said back now just came right back up.
Actually, yeah, you're an admin, so you'd be able to get in that way, but Alfred wouldn't. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So I just sent him the new link, and we'll see what he can do.
Okay.
Dave, we're talking about I don't know if you were able to hear, we were talking about before, but so we talked about how in the statement yesterday by the prosecutor, he says that Proctor wasn't there, which doesn't make sense. I mean, the lead investigator was not there the day the investigation was going, when we know he was in Dighton because he called the tow truck. The tow truck was towed back, and the investigation didn't start at the state police investigation didn't start at the scene until 5:30. You mean to tell me Proctor wasn't there? That just sounds completely beyond reasonable. But yet that's what the DA said yesterday. And he also, as you know, Dave, we've avoided ever saying the name Colin Albert on this channel. But now it's out there because the DA put it out there.
Said his name a lot, but I mean, Aaron and Kevin, I have a question for you. Is there really any precedent for a district attorney to hold a press conference on a Friday afternoon, talk about people in the case by name, and award-winning journalists and award-winning podcasts like ours, we're going to win an award. So I'm just doing that preemptively and say, leave. I mean, my God, I was blown away by that yesterday. And obviously, I mean, I used to think that Morrissey maybe wasn't involved in this investigation from the feds higher, but I mean, now I think he's got to be, and he's got to be in on it. To say that Proctor wasn't even there, to talk about Colin Albert as a witness and not a suspect. And there's just no precedent for what happened on Friday. There's none. I mean, me and Kevin talked about it after we both watched the video, and we were talking through it and going over some other stuff. And Like, have we ever seen anything like this? And we're living through the craziest case of all time. I hope people know that. And, I sincerely hope that Morrissey is also under investigation, because the fish rots from the head. The corruption really does start at the top. None of it can happen without him being involved on some level. So, and again, the guy runs unopposed. We live in a fucking one-party state. I'd love to know, who donates to him and what the voter turnouts are. I'm going to dig in more. Me and Kevin basically, agreed on that earlier. So, but I was absolutely, if you want my thoughts on the statement, I thought it was absolutely fucking insane. I mean, it's an attack on the First Amendment. I know, Kev, that you didn't disagree with everything you said, and I'd love to hear more about it. I'm sure you have a smart argument, but again, hey,
I'm going to introduce Alfred while we have him here. Is that okay, Dave?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let's get him in. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, hey, Alfred, can you hear us? Alfred, can you hear us?
Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Alfred, can you hear us? Okay. It's a common thing with people on the settings on this thing, I think. Go ahead, Dave. I'll just give him a call and tell him.
By what Morrissey said yesterday, and I know that everybody's going to agree with me. I thought it was crazy
Alfred,
to do it at that time.
We can hear you, but obviously your
Kevin,
microphone.
put yourself on mute, buddy.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Would it be an episode of Yellow Cottage Tales without that, guys? I mean, come on. Sorry. At the end of the day, it's an attack on the First Amendment, and it's just the craziest fucking thing I ever saw, Dubs. And he's got the Michael Morrissey was sort of a bit player in this, or sort of behind the scenes guy, and now that he's done this, he's put himself firmly in the crosshairs of everybody. So be interested to see how this plays out. But it's the wildest fucking case ever. It just gets wilder every day, and I can't know what it's going to be like if it ever gets there. Part of me doesn't want Karen Reed to have to go through that, and part of me wants, like, God, I'd like to see what these people are going to say on the stand, you know what I mean? And like on cross-examination, and what the media circus is going to be like. I want to hear what the Commonwealth has to say. What big evidence are they holding back? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk more about that on Monday with Sean on the Gulf on the show, about what we think what the defense or the prosecution might be coming with, So it's just wild. It gets crazier every day, and what a time we're living in,
I know.
So I'm not sure what happened to Alfred. I think Alfred was unable to he was unable to hear us. So we'll just get him out. We'll get him back next time, and we'll do a test run in the studio. But he's got a lot of interesting stories because he's investigated. He was involved in the Aaron Hernandez case, Prince Andrew, Mayor Menino. He's done a lot of work with the state police. So and his company is called Tech Fusion, and he's offered to help us out with any of the cases we want for free. So if we get some data involved that we need a forensic analysis of, he's going to help us out. So we are going to have him on from time to time, but we'll figure out exactly why he couldn't hear us.
That's awesome. So exciting.
So Dave, what I agreed with on the DA's statement was the general stuff, was that the idea that you shouldn't try a case on the internet, and you should be very cautious about, I think we all agree with that. And you should be very cautious about pointing the finger at somebody that isn't charged with a crime and where there's no evidence against them. That's why we never mentioned the name Colin Albert on this channel. Until tonight's the first time anybody said that name on our channel, and he's the one that opened the door to it. So, but to me, when you have, like I don't know if you heard the monologue I little gave there, Deb, but if you have someone that is shady, if you have an investigation that is incredibly shady, which this was in so many ways, then the public has to do this on their own, because your office can't be trusted anymore. And I think that's where we're at.
You hear things like Karen Reed is paying money out of her own pocket for a private investigator, which she did do. John may have done that. I was talking with Lena McMahon, Sandra Crispo's daughter, in the last couple of days. She had to pay for a private investigator because she was trying to get to the bottom of things. And, why in the hell do these people have to come up? There's no trust anymore. And we know that the investigations are incredibly shoddy. And civilians now are turning to PIs, news channels, journalists to investigate these stories because these guys they just can't do it. They can't do it properly. They're too compromised by their connections or whatever it is. And it's thing has turned up a lot about the rot that exists in our state and in our system. We already knew the federal system was completely destroyed, but
I think we can hear you, Alfred. I'm not sure. We'll give
Yes, I can hear you too.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Guys, this is Alfred Demerjian. I actually had a little clip to play for his, he's done numerous interviews on TV, but we'll play it some other time because we're going to have him back whenever we need something explained that we have trouble with tech. So Alfred, his company is called Tech Fusion, and that company's been around since 1988, so a very long time. I think that would make it one of the oldest in the country, maybe in the world, that does forensic data. And Alfred's been involved with the Aaron Hernandez case, Prince Andrew, Mayor Menino, and he's done a lot of work with the state police. So our question for today, Alfred, if you could help straighten us out,
Sure.
is about geofencing.
Geofencing, to simply say it, is basically think of a location and think of cars. So whatever cars pass through there, they want identification. So just take that into the internet, and whatever communication people have made with the internet, they want to get all that information. And from there, they'll see what they searched for, and based on other evidence they have, they'll probably pinpoint who that is. Out of, let's say, if there's 100 people there, they'll pick like 10 or 20 or whatever they think may committed that crime, and then they'll narrow it down. It's an elimination process. Basically, that's what geofencing is.
Okay, so it doesn't involve cell phones.
No.
Or it does. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't involve cell phone carriers.
No, it doesn't. But a murder case, they'll also go to cell phone carriers as well, on their own independently. That's what I assume. To do a precise job, they should go cell phone as well as geofencing.
So in this case here, that you probably haven't followed it, but the Karen Reed case, a Boston cop was killed, found dead on the lawn. He was dropped off at a party at 12:30 a.m. and then he was found on the lawn at a little before 6:30 a.m. And so the girlfriend is charged with murder for having backed into him. But the defense's theory is that he actually did go inside the house and got killed inside there in a fight or something like that, and then carried out on the lawn. So the question for the police have to find out is who was inside the house and when. So I guess you're saying that they would have to make a request to the cell phone carriers and also to who? The servers, Google or Amazon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's what they have to do.
That they have to do both of those steps.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you were saying earlier that it takes longer to do the geofencing than usually get a longer response time.
Yeah, we've had the police is able to get information from companies much faster than people. If people request things, they usually don't respond, and then you have to subpoena them and have some other. I'm not an attorney. Some other step enforcing the subpoena. They responded to subpoenas and then they didn't. I think it got busier, so people don't have that much luck. I mean, not a better luck. The police has a better luck with the companies.
Have you had any similar cases? Have you been involved? I mean, have you been personally involved in any similar cases where the defense is looking for information from inside a house or a certain geographic area?
Yes, we have, and like 15 years ago, they would provide it easier, most companies, for individuals. And then it became more and more difficult. You requested your own searches and they would give it to you. But then they said you need a subpoena or lawsuit, and then they responded to subpoena, and then after that they didn't. Then you had to enforce a subpoena. I don't know what step that is legally, but they make it more difficult because there's more and more people. I mean, there's so many people asking for information.
So basically with the geofencing, all of our devices are now wired to it at some level use the internet. So your car is connected to your phone. Then
That's
you have
right.
various types of devices inside your house that would be connected, perhaps even indirectly, like a printer and things like that.
Yeah, everything has to be checked.
Okay. All right.
Any electronic devices that's connected on internet.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
problem.
having you, Alfred. And we are going to have more questions for you. Alfred's company is Tech Fusion. They've been doing this probably for a lot longer than anybody else around here. So if you need to get in touch with them, I'll put a link below. But also you can reach out to me, and I'll put anybody in touch with Alfred. Okay, Alfred, take care. I hope you feel better. I know you have a little bit of a cold.
Thank you. Best of luck, guys.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. Let's see. We lost.
Did we lose Erin?
Yeah, we lost her for now. Erin is, I believe, on the Cape or in Nantucket or
must be
she was
nice.
She was picking up her kids from Nantucket. Her parents own a home on Nantucket, and I think the kids went there for kind of like a last weekend before the summer. So, so I don't know. Do you still have questions about that geofencing, Dave? I know that's a little different than the data stuff you worked on. Or
the only question I have is why hasn't Michael Proctor applied for the geofence data? I feel like that would be an important thing in an investigation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Because now, was the defense able to finally force them to do that?
I imagine they have at this point, but we just don't know yet. I would imagine. I think Yannetti and Alan Jackson are smart enough guys to know that geofence data is probably the last nail in the coffin of many nails in the coffin for this thing to end. But I still think, again, that they're gonna push this thing all the way through. They have to now. So even with that, I still think they would. But I would have got to imagine they've got it by now. They have to.
I wonder how long that data is saved by like say Amazon that runs the servers or Google.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. It's interesting. It'd be interesting to know. But I have read some cases where they've gone way back and gotten geofence data longer than 2 years. So I think it's saved indefinitely. But again, don't quote me. It's something that we should really become experts on because it's important, and it's going to be very important for, never mind the Karen Reed case. It's going to be important in future cases that haven't happened yet. It's always going to involve cell phones. You are blowing up tonight, man.
Oh, Erin's having trouble getting back in. So
yeah,
I don't know. She was in. She came in as when we restarted. She came in as an admin. So let me make sure she gets the invite. I'm not sure. So
did Truth and Transparency just do a live with the data from Jen McCabe and John O'Keefe's phone? Yeah, I'm not sure, Gigi, how it could be disputed. I've never disputed it. I've said from day one that that there really is nothing to misinterpret regarding the phone and regarding the data. But it seems like the prosecution has done enough to put the question in people's minds about the data. And that's the people that really I'm trying to reach at this point, to educate them on how data is saved, specifically regarding Google searches and things like that. So, so it'd be interesting to see how the prosecution goes about overcoming the geofence data.
Well, and the thing is too is that it's the defense only has to create reasonable doubt with one juror.
Right.
So Erin is having trouble getting in. She's trying. Okay. Just want to let you know she hasn't abandoned us. She's just getting a spinny thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, she is out of her house, so maybe that's what's going on. But so the defense only has to get one person to have reasonable doubt. So even if one person believes How Long to Die in the Cold took place at 2/27, that's probably going to get Karen off. The prosecution has to convince every juror that happened beyond a reasonable doubt. Because if there's no question that if Jen McCabe is searching at 227 for how long to end the code, then there's no question there's a conspiracy. I mean, I just it's hard to imagine any other explanation for that. So
and I mean, that's why our justice system is set up like that, right? The onus is on the prosecution, right? It's got to be more difficult to prove your case, you know, and that's why things move slow, and we have a constitution, and everybody is innocent until proven guilty, and so it looks like Google holds geofence data indefinitely on their called Sensor Vault. Is that what it's called, Elisa? All right, cool. Well, that's good. We just got to hope that Google is the one it might be Amazon Web Services. There's a couple different places that hold the geofence data. But I mean, you got to see it. We got to get it, you know? Where is it? You would think if the defense had it, it would be out right now. Like we'd have it all, you know what I mean? And it would be something, because again, the defense can be much more vocal than the prosecution in this country. That's just the way it's set up.
Yeah. But that's an argument there for that the data is not helping them.
If either it's not helping them, or you know, it's just simply unavailable right now. So
I mean,
I could be totally wrong.
I mean, if they had it, they'd leak it, right? So
yeah, I think they're probably fighting for it right now, and it's really bizarre that they're not giving it to them. That's really bizarre.
It's the same thing as the black box data. It was really unusual. I can't fathom why it took 15 months or 16 months to get the black box data. But now that they have it, we know the defense has it because they turned over all the discovery stuff that they had a month later. And according to Lally, the black box data says Karen hit something in reverse at high speed at that time. So we haven't seen the data, so we can't analyze it. But we do know that it seems like if the black box data helped the defense, they would have leaked it by now. Is that a reasonable argument? Or
that's reasonable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to see it and take a look at it. And Lally says that. Lally says a lot of things. He's also said that Katie Hyde, said that the 2:27 a.m. Google search happened, when in actuality she wrote didn't happen. Excuse me. And in actuality, in her report, she put that it was unknown. So I mean, Lally's
you've seen the full report now. You know that's not true. Come on now.
Well, he did say that. She did say that. It did say unknown.
What do you mean? But if you read the full report, which you got for me, so I give absolute credit where it's due. But we've seen the full report, and she explains that the trooper was correct in her estimation. And she explained it in very specific, and it was the same explanation that Lally gave in court. So I'm not going to repeat it here because it would not sound well from my lips because I'm not a technical person. But I'm working on a Karen Reed episode that's going to be long and goes into both sides of the case, and I will show that on the screen so people will be able to see it themselves. But Jessica Hyde agrees with Trooper Guarino that the search did not take place until 6:23.
And again, this is the same trooper, Nicholas Guarino, who was a complete neophyte when it came to digital forensics extraction. In the Birchmore case, he couldn't recover a bunch of Matthew Farwell's deleted correspondence with Sandra Birchmore. So everything Nicholas Guarino says and does is in question to me. So
that's perfectly reasonable. But yeah, you saw the bio of Jessica Hyde, and she probably is. She's the Wizard of Oz when it comes to this shit. I mean, I don't think I've never seen a resume like that. You know, she's a professor at George Mason University, but her experience with the military and other aspects of data goes back decades.
Yeah,
so
no one's doubting her credentials. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely not. I just don't think she's right about this. That's all.
She might not be. I don't know, and that's why you have trials, right? And that's the problem with these cases, that both sides know who to go to. That's going to give them what they want.
Yeah. That's true, I guess. But I mean, also, we're just getting so much BS from how can you take anything seriously that they're saying after that press conference on Friday when he said that Proctor wasn't even there?
As you know, I have a hard time. I can't take Lally seriously after he tried to tell us that the health app data was unreliable because John's phone moved after he was pronounced dead. I'm like,
right.
He knows. I don't think Lally's an idiot. He just apparently thinks everybody else is, and it's disturbing that he thinks we're so stupid that we fall for that. And it's just, there were things like that. There were two things in the Lally presentation that really were drop the mic moments for me. That was one, and the other one was after the defense made a long point of highlighting that there was a gap in the library surveillance video, I was sitting there waiting. What is Lally going to say? And
Right.
instead of coming out and giving an explanation, I thought he might say, well, in that direction, and this it's motion triggered, and sometimes it doesn't pick up cards going in that direction or whatever. He doesn't say that. He comes out, he goes, well, we got the same gap in our video too. So what can I tell you? I'm
What
like,
can we do? Yeah.
That satisfies you, Ladley? There's a missing 2-minute gap. That just satisfies you. I mean,
don't you think that would be something that would interest Lally instead of just going, same one in ours. Sorry, guys. Nothing to see here. And also, I mean, don't forget that you should put your phone on vibrate. You'll still be able to get the messages. I promise. You'll feel it. You'll hear it.
Me? Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know it was.
It's crazy through my headphones every time. It's like the waiter thing when you hit it. Super annoying. Waiter comes over.
That's called revenge, dude.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say I really shouldn't talk. Actually, you know what? My alarm isn't set anymore because now I have normal office hours instead of waking up at 8:30 at night for work. And also, the one last thing I'll say on it is that he, talking about Colin Albert and how this kid, like they didn't know Proctor, and there's pictures everywhere of like Colin Albert, like at his wedding, and Colin Albert, like with his family, and like this guy. They really do think the most maddening thing about this entire case, forget the misspelled reports, the fake bullshit put out there about the Google searches, the damage to John's arm and his wounds that are not very consistent with somebody hitting him in reverse, in my opinion, is the fact that these people just truly expected people like me and you and the people who are watching us and listen to us now, that we were that fucking stupid, that we were just going to go, well, looks like she hit him. Okay, the guys would never lie to us.
It's like I said in my opening, which you might have missed because we were having those technical difficulties. But he basically is saying, trust the process, trust the system. And that's the problem here. We don't trust you anymore. No. And the reason is not just because you're a strange guy that ran for office despite having the charisma of a rock.
Right.
But you win 98% of the vote because we live in a state where there's no opposition.
Right.
We don't trust the process because there are too many shady things in this investigation. So to me, even if Karen Reed turns out to be guilty, there's a process that can't be trusted here. You don't secure the crime scene. Now, this is not all his office. Some of this goes back to the police, but you don't secure the crime scene. You don't secure the vehicle. And then moving on to things that are related to his office, you have all these delays. Now, some of that they might blame on the state police lab, but then they should be making, hey, listen, you're the DA. Call the state police lab. Say, we got a murder case here. There's a cop that we found dead. Right. You want to make us wait 15 months for the black box data? Something's wrong there. Yeah. What's going on?
You're making us wait for the geofencing data, which is like the most important thing in 89% of criminal cases nowadays. You're denying the defense lawyers their discovery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just. And it goes with both cases, too, because I look at Birchmore and I look at Reed almost similar at this point. Like, you really mean to tell me that you bring a guy down to have a fucking interview with Farwell in a car? Give me a fucking break.
And the guy's a former Stoughton police officer?
Police officer? Like,
what's going on here, guys? I mean, that's...
Yes, I do have mosquito bites. I got my ass ripped by mosquitoes today. Oh, my God.
It's been a ridiculous year. It's been the worst year ever for that.
And we were out in the woods the other day. Forget it, man. That's what really angers me more about anything. Forget everything, but they really thought you were that fucking stupid. They really did. And it's like, that blows my mind. It's the same people who are going to absolutely a week from now, when more bullshit comes down, who are going to put masks on. I mean, it's the same people who believe this, who are like, oh, yeah, that's right. They would never lie to us, And again, I always go back to this, 50,000 black people in the 1950s who took vaccines for syphilis, were handed the disease. Like, these people don't have your best interest at heart. Not the DA's office, not the state police, not the federal government, none of them. They're stupid people, and their only interest is holding on to their own power. Nothing more. The only interest is holding on to their own power. They don't care if they have to kill you in front of your kids, put an innocent person in prison, kill a little girl who's pregnant. The only thing they're interested in is holding on to their own power. And you see it here with the DA, and you see it as high up as you can get in the White House. And It's just corrupt from the core down. I really hope, Kevin, that Morrissey ends up being a part of this federal investigation, whatever that may be, however deep it may be. None of us even know. We don't know what it is.
And I think the issue a lot of times comes down to courage. You know, you have to, if you're seeing wrongdoing, listen, everybody understands that the thin blue line, that if you're a cop and you're on the force with other guys, you know, you're not going to give that guy a speeding ticket. We understand that. But if there's a murder, if there's something serious going on, you have to do a real investigation. And if you see that a real investigation wasn't being done or something's being covered up, you got to make a stand. Now, look, I know that's hard to do that because your career is on the line and everything that you've worked for and you've got a family, but you still got to do it. I mean, in this country, people have to make a stand. Those IRS commissioners made a stand last month talking about the investigation in Washington. I mean, look, and it's the same thing in the DA's office. You got to make a stand. You got to, Larry, listen, dude, you got to stand up. And why are there FBI investigators handing out subpoenas to Colin Albert on college campus, which we now have a document to look at to prove that it's no longer a rumor.
Right.
So the FBI is investigating something here. We don't know what, but subpoenas were sent out to all the people in this case, apparently in May, I think May 6th or something like that. I forget the date, but that seems to be, I haven't reported that before. You haven't, because we don't feel comfortable that it's confirmed. But when you see what's going on with Colin Abbott being served by FBI agents on a college campus, shit, there's something going on. And that doesn't mean Karen Read is automatically innocent. Maybe there's something other weird explanation, but damn, the public has a right to say what the hell is going on here because something odd is going on.
And this lady, I mean, I said something to this lady, this daffy FBI agent on Twitter who, you know, we had this massive back and forth, and I think Turtle Boy showed some of it on his last show. And she was like, oh, you know, of course, Colin Albert got served. He's a witness in a public corruption case. And it's like, what 17-year-old kid what corruption did this 17-year-old kid witness? Like, that's really the line we're being fed right now, is that some 17-year-old kid is a witness to some sort of public corruption and not a part of an investigation into a murder. And the people that are saying that are just complete morons. And you're right, we do know that he was served. And it was way back in, what was it, April? It was a little bit before Turtle Boy put out the first blogs. I don't remember when he first started doing it, in the 20s, maybe 23rd, 24th, whatever. But so we know there's a federal investigation. So why doesn't Lally, like you said, have the courage to go, you know what? Let's just end this thing now, acquit this girl, and then tell the public, like me and you have said to each other many times in personal conversations, just tell the public, hey, the feds are working on it. That's all we have to say right now. And everybody listening to us, everybody who's interested in this would say, okay, no problem. The feds are working on it. We're good. All of them. What are we doing?
Well, even if Lally thinks the evidence is still there that Karen Read is guilty, at least pursue the things that you know are odd. So you need to cooperate, for instance, and say, all right, why is there a missing gap in the library? It's not enough to just say, oh, I don't know. I can't explain it either. I mean, that's not acceptable, especially when you know there's an FBI investigation going on. And if you do know that there's enough going on that this woman is certainly going to be acquitted, then yeah, drop it. You know, let the whole thing go. Right. Stop putting her through this. If you know she's ultimately going to win the case, then let it go. You know,
right. So, I wonder if Morrissey would resign in the middle of this. Somebody commented that. I think that's smart. Would he resign? If I were him, that's, you know, on it. Like, what, like, I know we don't want to go on this all night, but like, what would be the motivation behind doing that Friday press conference? Like, who thought that was a good idea? It just reeks of desperation and incompetence to me. Like, what point did that prove to anybody who believes that Karen Read is guilty of this, or is in the middle? How about a person in the middle who doesn't follow any of it and doesn't know anything? And like, what did that prove to anybody? Like, what would be the point of that? What advisor did he say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing this press conference regarding this Read case. A lot of shit is getting out of control in our opinion. Someone says, oh yeah, it's a good idea, sir. Like, who does that? I still can't wrap my head around that.
I guess my understanding is the Albert family went in there and put a lot of pressure on them. So, I mean, look, this is why I say the part of it, if you hypothetically, if we have to admit that it's possible Karen Read is guilty, and if she is, then these people have been dragged through the mud for no reason, and it is disturbing. So I can understand. I mean, Brian Albert's a guy that fought for his country, and seems to have been, certainly was a very decorated cop and was probably a very good cop. So it's unfortunate that this guy would be dragged through the mud. Jen McCabe, these people, they haven't committed any crimes that I know of. So it's almost tragic if they're being dragged through and they're innocent. So I can understand why the DA wants to address some of that. I don't know from a practical standpoint what he thinks the effect is going to be, especially when you put out bizarre and false statements about Proctor not being there. So you're not going to quell the conspiracy theories.
Right. You if anything, you stoked it. If anything, you made the pro Karen people like myself more upset, because you would come out and again just lie to us. And then I read a Globe story about it today. And you think the Boston Globe, the Pulitzer Prize winning Boston Globe, that worthless rag that sold for $1, owned by John Henry, the owner of the Boston Red Sox, that loser organization, would question anything that was said in the DA's press conference on Friday. None of it. Not one bit. I saw 2 stories in the Globe today, and I saw nothing on the Herald, nothing. You think they would be one reporter in that newsroom and that alleged news organization that would pull a document and say, let me make sure that everything checks out here. No, the first thing they do is go and cover for the powerful. And that's what this is all about. It's all about just covering for powerful people. And again, the guy runs unopposed. We live in one party state. It's a Democratic state. You're going to have to deal with corruption. But I just really thought that was crazy. I was hoping to see one news article. And I couldn't find anything outside of Turtle Boy, of course.
I want to give a little shout out to Amanda Hillman or Heilman. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. She said, "Oh my God, Kevin, please pick a side." Look, here's the thing. I have a new video that's coming out in a few days. This is a scripted one, so but it's long and it goes into the case from all sides, and I'm trying to look at it in a very detailed way. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, the only place to be on this case, the only logical, sensible place to be, if you've looked at all the evidence, is on the fence. Okay? There's powerful evidence for both sides of the argument. You have to, an incredible conspiracy has to have happened. A very, very unlikely conspiracy has to have happened in order for Karen Read to be innocent. You've got to get past that. And we all have to get past that if that's going to be the case. It's probably the most unlikely conspiracy that we've ever heard of. And one that doesn't make sense. One that involves police planting evidence or looking the other way while evidence is planting. You have a situation where Karen Read got home at 12:41 and seems that fits the timeline fits with her getting in an accident right there, because in those weather conditions, her being unfamiliar, it would probably take her about exactly 10 minutes to get home. So there is a lot of evidence here that suggests she's guilty. There's also a lot of odd evidence that suggests the possibility of a conspiracy is real. So the only place to me that makes sense is on the fence. And, that's where I sit.
I know a thing or two, I guess, because I've seen a thing or two. And you know me, I always lean towards a conspiracy. I mean, who's the guy here who
you love a good conspiracy
about a child sex ring? And I was right, KMSC124. You just said you finished my book. How'd you like it, buddy? I'm sure you thought it was great. Excellent reading for at night before bed, for sure, if you want to sleep miserably. One more thing, if we can, on the one other thing I just want to mention about the Reed case that struck me hard is the fact that, like I said, it has to be a conspiracy at this point, Kevin. It just has to be. For this guy to come out and lie like that, he knows he's the fucking DA. He knows. He's read the reports. They all come to him. For the people who don't know, the DA is the top cop in the fucking in the area. He makes decision on who gets charged what cases go to court, who gets a continued without a finding, who gets a 1-year sentence. Everything runs through the DA. He knows this case back and forth.
This is the county DA. Just for anybody watching this who's not from Massachusetts, this is the county DA. So for Norfolk County, so he's not the state DA or state. I think that's Attorney General in this state they call it. But so he's in charge of all the state crime cases that go on within that county. This is a county that's near. Yeah, right. And this is a county that's near Boston, so it has plenty of court cases.
Right. And he lets a lot of people off. Obviously, we have most people in this state just, get the free pass. We love criminals, we coddle criminals, unless, of course, the criminal's a cop. And then we cover for that criminal at all costs. So ask Matthew Farwell, Billy Farwell, and now this case with the Albert family. So the only point I was trying to make is that he knows the case inside and out. And to go on and lie and to be sitting out on his boat right now, and the fact that people are not calling for his resignation, that not every major newspaper in the city is writing reports saying, get this guy out of office, recall. If this happened in Florida, DeSantis would have fired his ass. I'm telling you right now, I saw it the last little bit of my life living down there. I saw a bunch of DAs get fired, a bunch of prosecutors get fired. People paid the price down there, and it doesn't happen here, and it should stop right now with Morrissey. Because it would not happen anywhere, in a red state. DeSantis would fire his ass, no problem. So, again, all that makes me think that there's something much bigger at play. And now I hate the argument that you just made, Kev. I love you to death. I know you weren't even really making it. You were just saying both sides, which I appreciate. So many people come at me with, oh, how many people could be, well, he can be recalled, KMSC. He could absolutely be recalled. He can't be fired, but he could be recalled. You could start a recall petition. How many? Really, not that many people would have to be in on this conspiracy. A lot of people didn't see it happen. We're just sort of on the edges of what happened. Not many people would have to be in on it. There's just a few people, and a lot of them want to protect the person that I personally believe did it, and they would go to the ends of the earth to protect the person. So to me, it's not far-fetched at all. It's actually it's in line.
Yeah, to me, it's like, as I mentioned, the prosecutor doesn't have a coherent or consistent theory about what happened, in his view, about how Karen did this. And in fact, most of the statements he's made on it are strange. So if they don't have a coherent theory about what happened, how can they charge her, right? How can they proceed? Especially, how can they charge her with something as specific as second-degree murder? So there's actually, which implies malicious intent. But the same thing is on the other side. If we're going to say there's a conspiracy, there really has not been a consistent, coherent case as to how this happened. That is really highly likely, where you had to take his phone and throw it out in the snow and then carry his body out later, or take it out by car and drop it in your own yard. There's a lot of stuff that is extremely unlikely to happen. That's why I'm on the fence. To me, and there's a lot of evidence we haven't heard. Most of the evidence we have heard has been given to us. Let's be fair. We've been manipulated to a degree by the defense team. That's what defense teams do. They find friendly sources and they manipulate the public. That's their job, and that's what's happened here. The prosecutor really doesn't have the ability to do that. So we're really not going to get a sense of this until we see the trial. And if you look through the history of crime, going back to older cases, even if I talk about a lot, the man from the train, because there's numerous cases discussed in that book. This went on back then too, where there'd be a rush the whole town would get on a certain narrative, and there'd be a rush to judgment, and they'd throw some guy in jail, and sometimes even get the conviction, and they'd find out 2 years later it couldn't have been him at all, and they'd have to let the guy out. So it's a really dangerous thing when it comes to these people, the public rushing into a narrative. And it probably goes all the way back to the time of Julius Caesar and beyond. So it's something we just have to, it's human, and we have to be on guard for it. I guess Turtle's
just wondering,
go ahead. Yeah. Oh, no, Harry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I know you said a lot of unlikely scenarios. So to me, it's entirely possible. And in fact, my theory is that it's what happened. They moved the body out by car, probably that Ford Edge, threw his body in the snow, threw his phone underneath him. I think that Jen McCabe and the Alberts, Chris, whomever, got together and said, this is what we have to do to protect this kid. And
where was the taillight?
By 1 inch.
Where was the taillight broken?
I don't know. Probably broken when Karen backed up in a chaotic moment, hitting John's car there, hitting the vehicle there, in that video that we all see on Court TV.
The troopers found no glass in John's driveway.
Mm-hmm. At this moment, I don't know. There's a lot of questions on both sides, but
So that's what I'm saying. So for this theory to work, a trooper would have to go into John's driveway, pick up
Mhm.
glass, and then transfer it out to the crime scene. So I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's a big ask to get everybody to
How
buy
do you know
into
it
all
was
these things.
cracked and not broken? I mean, I'm not ready to say it was even broken. I mean, it might have been
Right?
cracked.
No, it could have been cracked, and then later on, somebody pulled pieces of glass off the taillight. Yeah, there's
Yep.
different ways it could happen. Yep,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
that same trooper maybe who said a plow company that didn't exist plowed the area. The same trooper that misspelled every name wrong in the report. The same trooper who was very friendly with the family didn't disclose that. That guy. Yep.
Okay. So we're getting late, I know a lot of people are going to start switching over to Turtle Boy. I want to just say that Monday we have I think an important show. We have Sean coming back on, and he's going to talk about something that we've been unwilling to talk about because it's rumor mill stuff that's been around for weeks circulating, and this is something that would be very harmful to Karen Reed if it was true. I'm not going to go into the details here. I'm going to let Sean talk about it. It involves a prior assault, but let Sean explain it to you. But Sean also has come up with a way to refute that charge. So we'll let him tell you what the rumor is and why he's saying it's completely not true. Is that a fair way to do it, Dave?
That's a very fair way to do it. Can't wait.
Okay. And then we have some other huge things that we're working on here related to the Crispo case and related to the New Bedford killer. Dave's had some really big breakthroughs in this stuff. So I don't know when they'll come out. They'll come out soon. We're going to go over the BTK killer. We'll do that maybe Monday or maybe Wednesday or something, because there's also been some new evidence in this that he might now be suspected in 2 other murders that he had not confessed to.
Can I just give you a sentence on the new BTK stuff for the people who don't know? BTK had written in his police chief in Oklahoma was working on a cold case of a 16-year-old girl went missing from a laundromat in 1976. He was watching a BTK documentary, and he decided to get in touch with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, and he got all BTK diaries and a journal from 1976. BTK was working for ADT, traveling everywhere, and he happened to be in the Oklahoma area at the time this girl disappeared. And he had written in his journal that he was working on a hit for a young girl who was working at a laundromat directly across the street from where he was putting in a security system. The police chief went back and found out that in 76, the bank across the street from where this young girl was working, her name's Cynthia Kinney, was being a security system was being set up by ADT at that time. So a lot of circumstantial evidence there, and they're trying to get him to confess to it at this point. And that's why he's being suspected in this new case. So much more to come on that, but we might have another BTK victim. It's crazy to think that BTK, who loved the spotlight, loved confessing to his crimes, was a total egomaniacal, crazy person, would never confess to this, and it come out all these years later. So he's been in jail since 2005.
Yeah, unless he was saving it for some reason. I don't know. Wanted to get back in the public eye. I mean, who knows? It is right. A pretty strange coincidence that connecting those dots. I mean, because you're right, it might not be connected, but it is a pretty powerful coincidence that she went missing from a laundromat.
And you know what else is interesting is that, I was going back on some, I'm heavily invested in the BTK case. It's a true crime story that really interests me. And it was actually a journalist, Robert Beatty, a guy who worked at Wichita State University who taught criminal justice, did a book on BTK in 2004. When that book came out, that got Dennis Rader out of hiding. He had not killed anybody since 1990. So he had gone 14 years without being in the public spotlight. And basically the case had went totally cold, and Rader was ready to just retire as a serial killer. And it was a book by Robert Beatty, who I actually talked to tonight on Twitter. He's going to come on the show. And this book, that book basically made him go, hey, listen, these guys are not going to tell my story. I'm going to start communicating with police again. I'm going to write a book and send my book to these guys and have them read it. And it was during those communications that the police were able to trace it back to him with a floppy disk. He basically got caught because a true crime writer, wrote about him. So
Yeah, and he got it, and his own obsession about having his story out in the media and his BTK name and all his. He was obsessed with his own being known as one of the great serial killers, and his insistence on doing that was how he got caught, right?
his insistence on doing this is how he got caught. So he wanted to tell his story, and he basically said to the police, "Hey, you know, if I send you a floppy disk, don't lie to me. Will it be traceable?" And they said, "No, absolutely not. We can't trace it." And the floppy disk came in, and within minutes, a guy they had been chasing down for 30 years, they were in front of his house. I recommend you guys read John Douglas' book, Inside the Mind of BTK. He really goes through in detail how they arrested him. But within 20 minutes, they were in his driveway, casing his house, and they were like, there he is. There's the phantom that we've been chasing for 30 years. And remember, this guy killed children. He hung a little girl from a pipe in a basement. I mean, he was just, nobody like him in American history. But, you know, and there still might be more to the story. We don't know.
Yeah, there's so much. That's why the case is so fascinating, because there's so many weird and perhaps sometimes an aberration can be insightful into what's really going on in the mind of these guys. So with BTK, you have these long periods, 5-year periods when he would stop killing. You have that weird way he trusted the police when he said, "Can you trace this disc?" I mean, what? It's just odd, you know. You have the fact that he's a normal family man that had a very good relationship with his daughter.
Yeah,
so
and he had a great relationship with his son too. And his son even said in the transcripts when the FBI interviewed him, they were like, he's like, "I don't know, man. We had to leave it to Beaver life. My dad was a scout leader. He was the president of our congregation.
Yeah.
You know, we went on family trips every summer. I mean, he had a life that we wish we had, you know, that I wish I had, Kevin. And, you know, all the while, his dad killed their next door neighbor during a Boy Scout outing and threw a cinder block through her window and dumped her body. And he brought it to the church and posed her. He put a grave and took pictures. I mean, all the while.
The church where he was a senior, in the church where he was like a senior leader in too. So
he was the president of the congregation.
President,
He was the president. So
and
I mean,
he stored materials there to wrap the bodies and things like that.
And he worked for the city. His office was next to the Park City Police Department for 14 years. So every day for 14 years, the police were looking at BTK in their office and had no idea. No idea.
And his motives were not sexual in the way that a regular person would understand it, because normally he didn't even have sex with the victims, but there was a sex for him. That's killing is sex. So in the first family, his main target was the little girl but he hung her last in the Otero family. And it was after he killed her that he masturbated on her. And so, I mean, there is a sexual component. He's aroused and excited, but it's the killing that's the sex for him. Because some of the women offered him, they said, "Tie me up and rape me, just don't kill me." And he didn't even rape them; he just killed them.
Yep, because he actually said in his interview transcript with the FBI when he was caught that he didn't have sex with the victims because that would be cheating on his wife, and he didn't believe in that. To him, it was always about the bondage, the rope. He had read a book, which is my favorite true crime book, which got me interested in being an author, which was Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, which was about the Clutter family murders in the 1950s, and the two serial killers that hung the victims. And he had been really into bondage. It was to him, it was all about the rope. He always said it, and it was about the domination. He did it with animals when he was a kid, and he did it with his victims.
He did it with himself.
It wasn't about the sex. He did it with himself.
He practiced doing it with himself. Practiced what the bondage would feel like, and
and he would take pictures of himself. He would actually dig graves for himself, bury himself all the way, and put a straw so he could breathe, and have the camera on a timer. And the police and the FBI have in possession of hundreds of his pictures. I mean, this is what this guy. I mean, he really is a landmark study, and one of the most interesting serial killers that I've ever come across. And John Douglas's work on BTK is just, I recommend you read that book to really get some great insight.
And that's a real, like, go ahead, I'm sorry. No, that's a real insight. No, that's a real insight, what you were talking about there, how the extent that he would go to try to experience what the victim would feel, burying himself and breathing through a straw and stuff like that. So you almost, if you're trying to see what's going on in their head, when he's killing someone, he's actually aroused by even trying to think what they're going through, put himself, they don't, a psychopath doesn't experience emotional empathy. It's something that so to the extent, so they're almost kind of craving it. They're trying to understand this thing that they can't understand. And it somehow gets wrapped up in their fantasy world.
Yep. And he would say all the time, he would wake up in the morning and he would have dreams about being in his victim's shoes, how they would die and lose, how they would stop breathing slowly and their heart would stop. I mean, you're right. He put himself in the victim's shoes. And my God, you could do 100 episodes on BTK. And you're right, Fitz. Same mentality as Panzer Crust. Panzer Crust is the BTK of bloggers, basically. Yes, and you're right. Dave Jenkins, Russell Williams in Canada is a very interesting case. I believe he was an Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, like a colonel or something like that. So right,
definitely a psychopath.
Psychopath. He was a cross-dresser and real interesting. As was Dennis Rader. So it's just this weird. And again, much like other people I've talked about, like Wayne Chapman and Bar Jonah. There was nothing in Dennis Rader's background. He was not sexually abused, physically abused, none of the above. I mean, it's like a hardwired thing,
Yeah, I think my theory has always been, well, not always has, since I've researched this extensively, is that when you have that brain deformity, that you aren't able to experience emotional empathy. So it's normal once you get to a certain age to start. It's normal for us, especially for a boy, but for anybody, to start. You get a normal reward, chemical reward in your brain for experiencing domination. So if you beat someone in a wrestling match, you beat someone in a fight, beat someone in a game of checkers, you feel a certain rush for that. That's hardwired into us, to compete and to feel that rush from winning like that. But you don't enjoy hurting someone else because you have that normal empathy in your brain that makes that unpleasant for you. But if you lack that, then you just continue evolving this fantasy of trying to dominate and hurt others, and it becomes out of control. And then as you hit puberty and it becomes sexualized, it all kind of melds together.
Right, and especially when you have that lack of empathy, that's really the number one thing. And BTK, I mean, this guy was not human. I mean, he had no ability to care about other people, no ability. And it deserves so much more of our time. And hopefully, listen, if he's the guy on this, and I've been talking to a few people out there, and I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were like, listen, he's not going to cop to this. He has a great life. He has his own cell. He's in solitary confinement. He has a tablet. He has a TV. He has a radio. Like, if he gets strung up on murder in the 76 charge in Oklahoma, he could potentially see the gas chamber, or he could have a nerve agent in his arm. And I don't think that he wants to be executed. So he's probably going to fight this one.
Okay, are we about? Do you want to wrap this one up?
Time to wrap, brother. Sure.
All right. Yeah, I want to just add one thing to the audience. So tomorrow I have the Vegas team going on, but the Vegas team has been temporarily knocked down to one. She's an incredible woman who's a professional comic, but is involved in community work and stuff like that, and has for many years. Her name is April. Kevin we have a gentleman, Kevin, who was supposed to go on, but he was in an accident and he feels a little embarrassed about the way his face looks right now. So he won't be able to go on. And then we have Tom Fultz will be coming on down the road, but at the moment his job is eating up all of his time. But look, I'm not sure if we're going to do this live or record this and just bring this on right away. But so look for us tomorrow night. Monday we'll be on with Sean, and then we have some big stuff coming in the week. And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, guys, so much. Thank you, brother. See you guys soon.